our job to show what goes into this public service, to show New York what we're doing out there. And really that's the challenge, is to make that interesting and exciting for our viewers, and also marry it with that safety message. That's the important part here.
We've all had those moments. You're scrolling and you stop and laugh or gasp and say, hey, check this out. And for millions of people, there are times when they go, wait, this is really from the New York State Department of Transportation? That is when DOT goes viral.
The New York State Department of Transportation presents the DOT POD.
And welcome into the DOT POD. I'm Josh Heller.
And I'm Anya Cardos.
And we are delighted to have you joining us. Well, if you've been on social media during a snowstorm or just before your morning commute, chances are DOT may have popped up in your feed. Now, sometimes those posts just don't pop. They explode.
That's right. Case in point, New York's first major snowstorm statewide in January. Millions of people viewed an 8-foot-tall snowbank with one of our DOT employees standing right in front of it for scale. It was an incredible picture, and boom, it went totally viral. Jeremy Johnson is the DOT employee standing in that photo, and Rick Hyde runs our social media for DOT, and he is the person behind what everyone sees on our social media channels. Welcome, Rick and Jeremy.
Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for stopping by. So we are out in Utica today, on location, getting this episode. But Rick, we'll start with you. Basically, we all work, except for Jeremy, we all work here for the Office of Communications, and sometimes we try to use dramatic images, humor, kind of underscore the department's safety messaging, which is obviously the most important thing we put out there. But, we're constantly asking ourselves, how does this show public service in a real and frankly relatable type of way? So, I guess for you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your position, but how this is something you even are able to do, how you begin to decide what goes out there.
So yeah, I am Rick Hyde. I run DOT social media, and every day's different. We look at what comes in. We get photos from everywhere, from our guys on the field, from our people in the office, and it's our job to show what goes into this public service, to show New York what we're doing out there. And sometimes it's a funny meme. Sometimes it's the exact work that we're doing out there, fixing guide rail, plowing snow. And we're out doing all of that. And really that's the challenge, is to make that interesting and exciting for our viewers, right, so that they keep coming back, and also marry it with that safety message. That's the important part here. We're out there not only just to show what we're doing, but also to show the public and encourage the public how to do that safely.
Social media for us serves a real purpose. And as you mentioned, sometimes we use humor, sometimes we use like real world situations, videos, sometimes with our plow trucks and stuff like that. We talk about projects, we talk about worker safety, pedestrian safety, removing barriers. How is it that you choose what to put out there? And with all the stuff that we're talking about, it's got to be a challenge. But how do you actually, when it comes down to what you choose, how do you choose?
It's difficult most days because we do get so much content, and it's sorting through it and being like, okay, what's the day? What's the time of year? What's our season? What's our message that we've strategized as a department to put out that day, that week, that minute? And we're down to the minute sometimes with these weather emergencies, big snowstorms like that. Our typical post is Monday through Friday, but snowstorms don't care about what day of the week it is. So on a weekend, and that's the post that we're going to talk about today. That's when it came in over the weekend. So it's whenever the storm hits, whenever the content hits, that's what we put out.
You mentioned something, and that is about the messaging that you're trying to put out there, and the messaging that you have strategized to put out there. Talk a little about the marketing and kind of the collaboration that goes into deciding. Obviously, when things like storms pop up, that's pretty self-explanatory. But deciding what type of messaging we're trying to put out there and the reasons for it.
So we plan pretty far ahead in advance here. We've got a great group of people that make up an office, not just you guys, but more behind the scenes too.
It's not true. It's not
We'll
untrue.
take it.
So we consistently meet, we constantly meet, and we talk about what's coming up, and we're a pretty seasonal business. We know in the winter it's going to snow, we know in the summer it's going to be hot, and we're going to be out there doing construction. So it's that's what we kind of go back to and pull from as to what safety message we're going to try to marry with the content that we get in.
And these are conversations. These are, this doesn't just, you're like, oh, I like this, boom, putting it out there. It's not always like that.
I wish it was that easy. Yeah. It's not always like that. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's really quick. But most of the time it's planning out a week, a month, the year in advance. We have, months that are, motorcycle safety month. Right. Or pedestrian safety month, and we're planning content consistently for that.
Right. And sometimes those posts literally go viral, and that's what we're talking about today. And that's when we're going to bring in Jeremy right here. Jeremy Johnson, this was a photo that we just talked about up at the top about this 8-foot tall snowbank, and you were out there. You were handling one of the biggest storms that we've had so far this year, and you were the person behind it. Talk about a little bit before we go into this picture and how it happened. What is your role here? You're an equipment operator instructor. Please explain what that is and what you do.
Yeah, I've been with the state for over 20 years now, running various pieces of equipment. Entered the equipment operator instructor field 8-10 years ago now. So in that role, we train new employees on how to run. Well, new and veteran employees, that is, how to run various pieces of equipment, and snowblowers are one of our more complex pieces of equipment. We spend a lot of time with employees day after day, and with these big storms we've had coming through, it worked out perfectly for that situation. And I think right around the time that photo was taken, up in Boylston, where that photo was taken, we were in the realm of around 200 inches of snowfall so far for the year.
Oh my God. And it shows in this picture too.
Yeah, that particular day, it was a rough start. We had over a foot on the ground as soon as we showed up to the equipment, and it didn't let up on our way to where we were working that day, to the point where we were pushing cars out of the road because they were stuck in the road. A set of troopers we pushed out by hand, not with the equipment, of course. And then later that afternoon, the storm finally kind of cleared up. It wasn't sunny, but it was to the point I got to get a picture of this.
I think it's worth mentioning that when Jeremy mentioned snowblower, it's not what you guys are thinking.
No.
It's not a widget. In fact, this actually brings up a very nice social media post that I think Rick put out there, which was a picture side by side of a regular snowman, actually a decent sized snowblower at one of the residencies, and then the absolute behemoth, the absolute monster of a snowblower that we use on the road and that you were using. I mean, so when you say like, oh yeah,
you weren't just walking
it's a more
along
complicated piece of equipment. Yeah,
side of the road pushing this
is
thing.
a massive snow eating beast. And so if you haven't checked out that picture, it's a really cool picture, Rick. And I remember you showed that to me before you posted, of just the difference between like, oh, that's a snowblower, and like, that's not a knife, that's a knife. Like, that's a snowblower, guys. That's what that was.
Right, exactly. And you're not, and so you took this picture because this is like this is way taller than you, this snowbank, after you guys have gone through there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yeah, it was massive. And you're not like you're not in social media or anything. Like, you just wanted to, why were you taking this picture? You wanted to share it with your folks? Well,
yeah, absolutely. We were just snowblowing on an endless run of tall snowbanks. So I'm like, well, my parents always say we have no snow here because they're in Florida all winter and look at their security cameras, and that's what they believe. So I figured I'd get a quick picture and send it to my parents so they can see the vast amount of snow we did have currently.
And talk about how you did it, though. You did it in kind of a unique way. You wanted to show it to scale, like what it was like.
We were, like I said, going through a long stretch of just deep snow along the side of the road, and it wasn't just a little area. It was a mile probably or better. So I got out, had the snowblower operator go, just take a quick photo of me so I can send to my parents. And I took a picture of the snowblower so that you could see that it's not just one little area. Kind of looked down the bank for a little ways. And I fired it off to my parents, and then I said, well, I'll send it to my boss, see what he thinks. And here we are.
And so then Rick, from it getting to Jeremy's boss, how did that matriculate to you, before you were able to post it?
So it's a little interesting where I saw this email come through late on a Friday, and I knew we were getting the snowstorm later that weekend. So I saw it come through, but there was no photo attached. So I just skipped over it. And then we have regional Twitter accounts. And the next day I'm looking for content, and I see that this amazing photo is posted on one of our Syracuse regional accounts. And I was like, I need to have that photo. So I reached out to that.
This photo now.
Yes. Yep. Reached out to the PIO on the weekend, and she was like, I got you. Send me the photo. And I was like, and I've been doing this for 3 years, so running social media for DOT, and you kind of get a feel for if something's going to go well or not. And I saw this, I was like, this has a chance. So but how can I spin it? How can I make this a little bit more interesting? And I looked at the photo and was like, that's about 1.25 Jeremy's high. And that's the headline that I ran with on this post.
You
snowbanks.
literally wrote that one. Well, what did you write?
So I led it with snowbanks in Oswego County are measuring 1.25 Jeremy's high. And I let that run. And I think that's what everybody jumped in. And so you might have a new job coming up where we measure everything in Jeremy's. Yeah. So, we've got this bridge that we need you to measure.
So, and how many views did Jeremy and his snowbank get?
So I pulled the numbers this morning, and we are at 6.4 million views already.
Okay. Wow. Well, to put that into context, what does that mean?
That means it did amazingly well. That means that we, 6.4 million views, 28,000 likes, over 1,500 comments, over 9,000 people shared it. It exploded.
People. That is to me that is absolutely incredible. And Jeremy, your face, basically 6.4 million people have seen you. Did you ever think? I mean, you've had some people get like their 15 minutes of fame. You have been featured in stories after this, news articles. What does this feel like? You're definitely having your 15 minutes right now.
Yeah, I didn't really feel 15 minutes of fame, but it was kind of fun. I'd get emails from a lot of coworkers, found you here, just all the different platforms it was put on. And, it was crazy amount of platforms that they're finding at Yahoo News, USA Today, the Weather Channel, Fox Weather, everywhere.
This really exploded. It went everywhere.
Yeah.
And now you're on the DOT POD, which is pretty much
that's the pinnacle.
That's next level.
That's how you know you made it. That's how you know.
And what did your folks think?
They just sent back, it reminds me of my dad. He was up in that area when he was a child working on a farm, and he says that takes me back to when I was a kid back in the 50s and 60s of being up in that area. And then the conversation basically ended. And then when it exploded about 3 days later, I sent him the link on from the DOT Facebook page, and it kind of spread and brought up conversation again there.
So the way that happened, it's really interesting. I looked at our analytics too. In the past year, this is our best performing post out there. So it's just really interesting. And a lot of the times I get all these photos from across the state, but I don't know the people in them. I can't get out around and meet everyone.
Right.
So it's kind of cool for me to meet you, Jeremy, and to see, the person who is in this photo and that went viral.
You bring up a really good point, because a lot of times our craft really in the Office of Communications is storytelling. We are literally telling the story of DOT projects and the people behind all of these initiatives. And and very often we may talk with them on the phone, but a lot of times we don't get to meet them. And this is a really special moment. But beyond that, why do you think Jeremy's story and this one, I'm talking about stories, why did this resonate, do you feel, so much with people out there?
I think wintertime or snow response, all that, it performs very well on social media. Mm-hmm. But what really I think performs well is introducing our people to New York State. People want to see what's behind the scenes, who's running this snowplow, who's running this snowblower, and I think it really connected. Showing, hey, here's this giant snowbank, but here's this Jeremy in front of it. And I think people were really interested in that, and I think the humor aspect of it kind of pulled them in.
Well, and I think it's a humanization in that, I know most people have driven by those types of things and are like, I bet it's a lot taller than me. And then, I think personally, just like you, like not for social media, not for anything else, to be like, if I was stopped there, I think I'd want to take a picture like, look how tall this is. Are you kidding me right now? Like, I don't think there's a person who looked at that and wasn't like, yeah, I would do that too. I would definitely do that. I bet that one's taller than me. Like, I've done that, in my yard where I'm like, oh man, this is almost as tall as I am. And
Right.
I didn't post it on social media.
The disclaimer that we have to do is please do not stop on the side of the road
No,
to
please don't.
measure
Right.
yourself
Please,
next to our
right.
snowbanks.
Please don't do
Yep.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
and that brings us back to Jeremy's job too, because your job is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And do you think that this kind of highlights the work that you guys are doing, kind of personalizes it?
Yeah, it definitely helps show the public like where we're working, how we're working. Because I did see a comment on there that says, I live in Oswego County. We only have 4 inches of snow. Well, go across the county and here we have, 6 feet on the level, after your snowpack. So it does bring light to what's actually going on across the state, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing it does too is, when did this go out? Over the weekend. Well, were you off over the weekend? No, you were working over the weekend because that's when the snowstorm decided to hit. Super rude of the snowstorm, but that's okay, right? But that's when 24/7, 365, whatever happens when it's needed, you guys are out there. It's a weekend. You're enjoying your time on your couch. But you guys are out there doing the work that needs to be done to keep people safe. And I think it's just a reminder of that. Like, this is, whenever there's a snowstorm, it doesn't matter what time of day it is or what day it is. It's, holidays, whatever, it's snowing, got to be out there. And I think that's a good reminder to people that, this is a commitment that you guys, you guys live up to each and every year, each and every season, that it doesn't go unnoticed, at least not here. And I'm glad it's not going unnoticed, in the public at large too.
Would you like to put, if you had one thing to say to the public that for them to understand what your job is like, what would you tell them?
It's hard to say, pin it down, but it is not so much 365, but throughout the winter, we're working around the clock, 12 to 16 hour days, very busy, away from our family. Just be aware of, the commitment we're putting in to make the roads safe, keep the roads open wider as they are and such.
And I think that's what we've seen, in the 3 years that I've been here doing social media, that the responses are coming back. You get the one or two here off negative comments, but there's so much support out there too. We post, a picture of a snowplow plowing a road, and we get so many people jumping on board saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and it's really the fact that these guys are going out in the worst possible conditions to make the road safe for everybody out there. And I think that's our story, at least throughout the winter, that we're really trying to push and tell.
You're just talking about comments. I know during snowstorms, there's a lot of positive comments, but it's not always rainbows and butterflies when you get comments. I'm often curious about this, and maybe people who are also online. How do you handle sometimes the not so nice comments that do come in?
Mean, man. Some people are mean.
People are so mean.
Some people can be mean.
Here's the thing: I don't know how you do it. We've gotten a few mean comments, on the podcast, and I'm like, I take them very personally. You can't almost in your position.
Can't.
Like, how are you able to separate that and be like, whatever, no big deal.
So I think I'm a little bit unique. Is I started in graphic design, so that's all about critique. People are always critiquing you, what you can do better. So I think I built a thick skin early on that this kind of just molds itself into that as well. I can't take anything personal, even though some comments are very personal, like, who is this guy? And, various other insults. But I think for the most part, it's judging those comments and seeing thinking about as a spokesperson for DOT, if I respond to this, am I going to kind of fuel this flame where it's just going to go back and forth and nobody's going to win whatsoever? Or could I, educate, give this commenter a little bit more information where they sit back and they go, maybe I need to rethink my stance here. And then there's the other option of, I'm going to take a step back, and it's beautiful when this happens. The public jumps in and they're like, hey, no, you're wrong. This is how it is, blah, blah, blah. And they start just building up DOT and the support of DOT.
Yeah.
And
I've seen
one comment that was recent. There was a post you put out that had a cat in a hard hat and a vest.
Yes,
and obviously it was made...
say.
It's not a real cat. Like, I think we can all agree with that. And someone commented, I don't even remember what it was for, to be honest with you. It's pretty adorable.
Honestly, I think I was trying to tie a work zone safety message to the
like
very popular
cat
International
kind of
Cat Day.
Yeah. And I think someone was like, I don't know how I feel about you using AI. And I think your response was fantastic.
Yeah. So I took that and I was like, now's my chance. And I replied, because it was an AI cat wearing a hard hat. And I replied that the original cat kept taking the hat off, so we had to use AI. And it was beautiful because then the person commented, back, and they were like, "Well played," and fair.
That's great. And it was using humor. You also used when somebody said, "Oh, that must be AI." It was like plow trucks, I think. And
it was echelon plowing.
And it was echelon plowing. So when all the plows, so you have like three plows side by side, and I loved the way that you handled this. Please share what you did.
So I didn't reply directly to that, but I was, and we do this a lot. Like I'll take that comment, and I know if I reply directly to it, it's just going to kind of escalate things. So I take that, and I was like, I've got an idea for a future post. So I took that image, which 100% wasn't AI. It was our fantastic drone team downstate that took this amazing photo. So I took that photo, and then I AI'd the photo. So I had a flying shark with laser beams.
I think you had Godzilla in there.
Godzilla might have been in there, the Kraken. And I was like, one of these photos is AI, and one is not AI. And I left it up to the public to figure that out.
You mentioned popular days and memes and things like that. What we've seen is social media is changing, and it's moving, and it goes in different directions, and it's constant. How are you able to? Because I don't know how much social media you use in your personal life, but how are you able to kind of stay up on the times? I mean, you're putting things out there, and using memes that are current and memes that I've used. I think the 6-7 meme you guys did, and I think I said that to my son the other day, who's 9, and he went, "Dad, that was last year." And I was like, ouch. Okay, that smarts a little bit.
Wow.
So when things do change as quickly as they do, as I have found out, how are you able to kind of stay up on that? I mean, it has to be something you have to work to do to make sure that you're maybe not on the cutting edge, but pretty close.
You're beating around the bush, Josh. I'm a 40-plus-year-old guy.
I was
so how does this old man stay up on his social media?
Yes,
That's the question. I hear you.
That was the question.
I think just I watch everything. I look at everything. You mentioned your son. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I sometimes bounce things off her, and I'll say something, and she'll react to it. I'll be like, "Ooh, okay, I got to remember that."
There's a lot of eye rolls, though. A lot of eye rolls.
Yeah, yep. That's regardless.
I bet those hurt more than the comments. Like, oh, fine.
A little bit, especially when I think I have a good idea, and I'll run it by her or my wife, and they'll just look at me.
Dad.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, do I use that though? Because I kind of like that reaction.
Just lean into it.
All right. And Jeremy, last question for you. What does it feel to be on the, more hero side of social media? Like, were you worried about any comments?
No, I actually read through a bunch of the comments just for fun. And I got pretty thick skin just like him. And there is some negative comments on there. I saw even some AI comments. And then there were some coworkers that are like 6'8" saying I was 5 foot tall. And so, I took it with stride, and I didn't take any of them to heart. And if you're going to be on any of those posts, you really can't take anything to heart.
No, I guess you can't. No.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming in and taking some time and chatting with us a little bit about this. Rick, if people do want to follow us on social media who don't, where can they and how can they find us?
So we are on all the major social media channels. We're Facebook, we're Instagram, we're X, LinkedIn, and Threads. So we're on all those platforms. If you search New York State Department of Transportation or NISDOT, you're going to find us.
Well, that'll just about do it for us here from the DOTPOD. Again, thanks to Rick and Jeremy for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. And definitely do, if you don't follow us on the social medias, get out there and find us. We are around. The content is great. It's informative. It is helpful. And it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. And if you do, please be nice to Rick. He's a good guy.
Don't be mean to Rick.
Be nice to Rick.
Yeah.
Okay. And just remember, he is reading these comments. And although he does not take them personally.
And any of our other hardworking folks like Jeremy, who happen to pop up on all of our, or maybe sometimes explode, go viral.
And if you're looking for us, you can find us podcast@dot.ny.gov. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. That's podcast@dot.ny.gov. So she's Anya. I'm Josh. Until next time, we are right here on the DOT POD.